Mr. Walter is a silver-haired man who lives near Lake Shasta, California, and enjoys mornings fishing. His companion is Max, a loyal brown and white dog who follows him everywhere. That morning, the lake surface was calm. The gentle sunlight shining on the green water made the space so peaceful. Walter prepared fishing rods, bait, and a pot of hot coffee, placing them all on the familiar small wooden boat. Max jumped into the boat and curled up beside him, his ears pricked up to listen to the waves. The boat slowly moved away from the dock, Walter rowing gently, taking them to the middle of the lake where the fish often gathered. He dropped his fishing line into the water and sat waiting, his eyes on the lake shimmering in the early morning sun. Max stood up, sniffed the fresh air. His round eyes looked around, his tail wagged slightly in excitement. They are used to the quiet of the mornings, no car horns, just nature and friendship. Walter closed his eyes and enjoyed the cool breeze, not expecting that today's fishing trip would change forever. Suddenly, Max jumped up, growling and barking loudly, his eyes looking far to the right. Walter was startled, following Max's gaze but not knowing what was floating in the waves. Max continued barking, jumped onto the bow of the boat, and dove straight into the lake, splashing water everywhere. "Max, come back here," Walter called out in panic, but the dog swam away at an incredible speed. The boat rocked slightly. Walter hurriedly rowed in the direction Max was rushing through the cold water. In the middle of the lake, a small creature was struggling weakly, its eyes wide open with fear and despair. Walter began to realize it was a squirrel, small, exhausted, barely able to float. Max approached it gently, then turned his back as if wanting it to cling to his head. The squirrel seemed to understand. It clung to the fur on Max's head, its hands trembling as it squeezed tightly. Walter breathed a sigh of relief when he saw Max turn around, carrying the clinging little creature with him. "Good job, Max! Good job!" Walter said loudly, tears glistening in his old emotional eyes. As Max swam closer to the boat, Walter quickly bent down and reached out to catch the trembling squirrel. It was soaked, its eyes half closed, its belly heaving heavily from drinking too much water. Walter picked him up and placed him in his arms, using his other hand to help pull Max back onto the boat. All three are now safe on the boat, but the battle for life is not over yet. Walter wrapped the squirrel in the towel he used to dry his hands, hoping to keep it warm and revive it. Max licked the squirrel's forehead gently, as if to comfort the sedated little creature. Walter started the boat and headed for shore faster than he had ever gone fishing. His heart was pounding, filled with worry as he wondered if the squirrel would survive. As soon as he reached the shore, he picked up the squirrel, signaled Max to follow, and quickly climbed into the truck. Max jumped into the back seat, his eyes never leaving the squirrel lying, gasping for breath in Walter's lap. Walter gripped the steering wheel tightly and drove to the nearest town where there was a small veterinary clinic. When he arrived, he walked in and shouted, "Help! I found a drowning squirrel." The female veterinarian, named Amy, immediately ran out, receiving the squirrel with a serious expression. Walter and Max stood beside her, eyes filled with hope following Amy's every move. She placed the squirrel on the table and began checking its heart rate, breathing and fluid in its lungs. "It has drunk a lot of water, but I will do my best to save it," said Amy. Using professional techniques, she proceeded to squeeze water out of the squirrel's lungs. Amy then placed it in a small incubator, providing oxygen and keeping its body warm. Max sat close to the cage, his eyes sad as if waiting for a new friend to revive. Walter could only stay silent, clenching his fists, praying that the squirrel would be strong enough to pull through. Time seemed to stop in that quiet white room. After 2 tense hours, Amy came out with a slight smile. "He's out of danger, Mr. Walter." Walter breathed a sigh of relief, tears falling uncontrollably, his hands shaking as he took the squirrel. The squirrel woke up, eyes slightly open, looking up at him with a weak but trusting gaze. Amy carefully instructed on care, diet, and respiratory monitoring for the next few days. Max wagged his tail happily, pressing his nose against the squirrel as if to say, "Welcome back." Walter placed the squirrel in a small basket lined with a soft towel and said goodbye to Amy, his heart filled with gratitude. On the way back, Max kept looking at the squirrel, resting his chin on the basket as if protecting it. The squirrel was still weak, but it knew that it was loved by two sincere hearts. Walter returned home and gently placed the squirrel on the sofa next to the warm fireplace in the living room. Max sat beside him, not taking his eyes off the little creature he had saved from the cold water. Walter mixed condensed milk and used a small straw to feed the squirrel, drop by drop, like taking care of a baby. The squirrel tried to swallow it, its tiny hands clutching his hand in a daze. He named it Nugget, a precious little thing in life. Max seems to accept Nugget as a new member of his little family. The Shasta Lake cabin now has a small yet warm soul. Every morning, Walter makes Nugget warm milk and sits on the porch with Max to watch the sunrise. The squirrel got stronger every day, started climbing on his shoulder and running around Max's feet. Walter made Nugget a miniature wooden house hanging from a large oak tree in the backyard. The house has small stairs, a tiled roof, and the inside is lined with fragrant, dry straw. Max often stood under the tree looking up, barking softly for Nugget to come out and play. Nugget climbed down using the small rope, quickly climbed onto Max's back and ran around. The three of them played tag on the lawn in the backyard, making Walter's days cheerful again. Walter teaches Nugget simple hand signals to know when it's time to eat and when it's time to rest. Max always patiently waited for Nugget to finish eating before eating his portion. Walter captured their lovely moments with an old camera and hung it on the wooden wall. Nugget loved to lie on his shoulder while he read, his tail wagging to the rhythm of his slow narration. Max rested his head on Walter's lap while Nugget curled up in a thick sweater and slept soundly. The once lonely old man now has two loyal friends by his side. He said, "I thought I was just going fishing, but I never expected to bring back a precious life." They went for walks together, went boating, and Max and Nugget even went fishing with him again. Nugget never went into the water, but always wagged his tail when the boat hit the lake. Max always let Nugget sit on his head as if it was the most special place. And those friends, dog, squirrel, and human, have bonded into a strange but complete family. Every time a guest came over, Walter would tell the story of that morning, with eyes shining with happiness. Max lay still beside him and Nugget ran around and climbed onto his shoulder as living confirmation. Not every trip results in a catch, but that day he caught a miracle. From the quiet of Lake Shasta, an unlikely friendship blossomed and never left. Because love sometimes starts with a jump into the water and a gentle hold on the head. Dear friend, thank you for taking the time to follow the story. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more animal stories.